and following the instructions there. Copies of the rules for the meeting were provided on the virtual meeting website.
This is administrative stuff. They're going to talk about now. Horatio Gutierrez is going to talk about right now. He's going into all the compliance disclosure. You're not missing anything right now. He is going to talk about all of the shareholder initiatives. He is probably going to bring up the Nelson Peltz thing as a this happened, but now it's been settled. Any other shareholder initiatives that needed to be voted on by shareholders or by proxy at this point, whether an individual or by an institutional, like a mutual fund company, think BlackRock, think Vanguard, think American Funds, T. Rowe Price, so on and so forth. This is what they're going to go through now. A lot of these things have already been decided on, if not every single one of them. Okay, before the meeting, they're just going to announce results. Here we go.
Standing shares present today and voting.
Thank you, Mr. Gutierrez. As of the close of business on February 8th, 2023,
this is their auditor.
The record date for this meeting, there were 1,826,825,064 shares of common stock outstanding, each of which is entitled to one vote.
Shares that Disney itself does not own.
398 million.
That's what outstanding stock means.
And 735 shares of common stock represented by proxy at this meeting, which represents at least 51% of the total number of shares entitled to vote.
Thank you. Based on this report, I declare that a quorum is present, that this meeting is qualified to proceed, and that the polls are now open. The first item is the election of 11 members of the Board of Directors. Each director holds office for a term of 1 year. The following directors are nominated for election at this meeting: Mary Barra, Safra Katz, Amy Chang, Francis D'Souza, Carolyn Everson, Michael Froman, Bob Iger.
Okay, they're reaffirming the board right now. Stay tuned, because there's probably going to be more announcements coming. What you just saw with Bob Iger was mainly a retrospective. Very well done. But I think there's going to be some big announcements based on what I just saw coming up later in this meeting, I think.
As the company's independent registered public accountants for the current fiscal year, as recommended by the Audit Committee of the Board of Directors. David Johnson, a representative of PricewaterhouseCoopers, is here today to respond to any questions. The board recommends a vote for the ratification of the appointment of PricewaterhouseCoopers as the company's independent registered public accountants for fiscal 2023. The next item is the advisory vote on executive compensation. We are seeking advisory shareholder approval of the compensation of our named executive officers, and the board recommends a vote for this proposal. The next item is the advisory vote on the frequency of votes on executive compensation. We are required to present executive compensation for advisory approval either every year, every other year, or every 3 years, and we are required to ask shareholders periodically how often they prefer to hold such a voit.
They're asking for 1 year.
The board recommends that we continue the practice of holding these votes every year.
Yeah. And that's based on SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission regulations, as well as corporate bylaws for the Walt Disney Company.
The full text of the proposal is set forth in the proxy statement.
This is my favorite proposal.
I understand that Paul Chesser, a representative of the shareholder, is here to present this proposal, and I would like to invite him to do so. I would ask that he limit the presentation to 2 minutes at most.
The National World War II Museum is hosting an exhibit about how Walt Disney and his company supported the war effort. For example, the Disney Studio lot in Burbank was converted into a military base almost overnight after the attack on Pearl Harbor. Disney Studios immediately began work on training videos for topics like how to spot enemy planes. Demonstrating sacrifice, Walt's now beloved classics of the early 1940s like Pinocchio and Bambi suffered early box office losses due to the war effort. Producing the training videos cheaply, Walt said, quote, "I don't like this profit during war when people are out there giving up their lives," end quote. It's quite a contrast to today's Walt Disney Company. As we highlight in proposal number 5, Disney has cozied up to the communist regime in China.
Holy cow!
According to the U.S. State Department, the dictatorship is guilty of slavery, forced organ harvesting, genocide, and many other
Lord.
Jesus, this is a fist in the
Rather than take the financial hit for principle like Walt did, instead the company thanked the Uyghur torturers in Xinjiang for allowing Iran
this
to
is
build
why
their
we
products,
watch this
for one
live.
example.
On Bob Iger's
Disney also
dime.
capitulates to the Chinese government's every censorship demand in order to retain access to their market. And rather than enlist its artists against oppressive forces like Walt did, Disney instead infuses its cartoon features with mature adult themes that American parents don't want their kids exposed to.
This is
That led to 2 box office bombs for its top 2 animated theatrical releases last year.
They're slapping this down. Don't get your hopes up.
Special tax
No, but this is a moment to remember.
theme parks in Orlando.
This is Ricky Gervais moment.
Upon his return at the end of
This is
last year,
on
Mr.
the
Iger
record.
said about the company's critical relationship with the state of Florida, quote, "To the extent that I can work to kind of quiet things down, I'm going to do that," end quote. But instead, we saw last week Mr. Iger escalate hostilities against the Sunshine State regarding the district.
He's playing all of it.
That's why Mr. Iger and this entire board that presided over last year's disaster cannot be trusted and should be opposed on your proxy ballots.
Well, that
Thank
was
you.
2 minutes.
The board of directors has recommended a vote against this proposal for the reasons set out in the proxy statement. The next item is a shareholder proposal by Thomas Strober.
Oh my!
The full text of the proposal is set forth in the proxy statement.
When's the last time we ever
I
heard
understand
anything
that
like
Thomas
that from
Strober
any
is
major
here to
company?
present this proposal.
Jonas knows what to
And I
clip.
would like to invite him
Oh,
to do
man.
so.
This is
I would ask
beautiful.
that he
Like
limit the
today.
presentation to 2 minutes at most.
Thank you. My interest in Disney's corporate charitable contributions was sparked when Disney spoke out on 2 controversial issues: gay sex and abortion.
Oh God!
First concerned a proposed Florida law on when and how elementary students should be taught about gay relationships.
Every company is
The
running
other
as
issue
fast
is
as
when
they can
Disney
from this
decided
now.
it would help some employees skirt valid laws in their states if they wanted to get an abortion. Disney's positions were worse than wrong. They were stupid. They would have a material impact on only a small percentage of our employees while silencing many others.
Oh, share this,
In
people.
addition,
Share this right now.
policies could possibly
I have never
alienate
heard anything like
millions of
this.
our current
Share!
and potential
Share!
customers. As
I
we
have been doing
learned,
audits
virtue
for
signaling
2
has
decades.
its costs. I was curious if our corporate charitable contributions were influenced by the same politically correct mentality. Corporate charitable contributions have only one legitimate purpose: create goodwill in the mind of the public, people we market to. I discovered that instead of telling about all the many wonderful charities that received almost $300 million of shareholder money, Disney tells a story. Something Disney is good at. Only a handful of charities are actually mentioned. We could have the same story and only give away $30 million. The suggestion is to trust Disney to make the right decision. But considering Disney's most liberal bent, there is little reason to trust. A good story that is designed to obfuscate the truth is disingenuous.
Ooh.
The solution: simply list who gets our money. We should want to shout this far and wide. Leave politics at the breakfast table. Come to work with all the employees without insulting their beliefs in the interest of all the shareholders by marketing ourselves to all humanity. Thank you.
The pendulum has shifted.
Thank you. The board of directors has recommended a vote against this proposal for the reasons set out in the proxy statement.
You think again?
The next item is a shareholder proposal by the Educational Foundation of America and co-filers. The full text of the proposal is set forth in the proxy statement. I understand that Laura Nixon is here to present this proposal, and I would like to invite her to do so. I would ask that she limit the presentation to 2 minutes at most.
They can't
Good
bleep in
afternoon.
chat.
The Educational Foundation of America is a long-term investor in Disney stock.
One of the reasons we admire this company is that it takes principled stands on important issues. Sadly, Disney's admirable track record is under attack by some of the very politicians and political organizations that Disney has supported with contributions from the corporate treasury and Disney PAC. Our proposal gives some examples of this. The most notorious example has been Disney's support of Florida politicians who have exacted a costly and very public revenge against this company for taking a principled stand against the bill known as Don't Say Gay.
No, it's not known as that, you liar.
Us is Disney's generous support of politicians and political committees
She must
working
read the Daily
to weaken
Beast.
access to reproductive health care. 70% of Disney's political contributions.
This is what it's like to become a political organization. This is what happens when a company does this.
To the enactment
Listen.
of
Both sides are not going to do it.
abortion ban
Yep.
in 2022. The same politicians are now seeking to narrow the window to 6 weeks before most women even know they are pregnant. One
This is a
in 4
political
women
statement.
will have an abortion in her lifetime. Think of the harm.
Has
that Disney's
nothing
Florida
to
workforce
do
over
with
the years to
Disney.
come. Disney's political dollars have also supported politicians.
This is
working
why
against
this company's so
progress on climate
screwed up.
and those who promote the 2020 stolen election conspiracy theory.
Oh, here we go.
Disney shareholders need to be reassured that the
But this is
company
what happens.
spending
Disney
its
made themselves
dollars
political.
wisely and in alignment.
And
with
this
its
is
core
during the
principles
week
and
with all
interests.
the Trump stuff going
That
on.
is the purpose
This
of
is
the report
stupid for
requested
Disney.
in this proposal. It is
Oh,
not a
I
heavy
hadn't thought of
lift,
that. You're
and
right.
it would incentivize
This
careful
goes nuts
scrutiny,
tomorrow.
wiser decision making, and accountability to shareholders.
So she
Please
wants
vote in
them
favor
to list all of their
item
political
number 7 on the
expenditures so
ballot.
that they can
Thank you.
crucify them even more?
Yes.
Thank you.
This is a
The board
lib,
of
or
directors
this is a
has
very
recommended
left-wing
a vote
organization
against
that's been trying to do this to
proposal
Disney
for
for
the reasons
years.
set out in the proxy statement.
I'll explain
I
it
would ask the
later.
Inspector of Election to give us his report based on proxies received by the opening of the polls at today's meeting. Inspector, may we have your preliminary report?
Almost
Thank you, Mr.
1,300
Gutierrez.
watching.
For item one,
Please smash the
election
like
of
and share.
directors,
Thank you
we
so
have
much for being
received
here.
proxies voting for each director representing
Super
at
chats,
least
be patient. We will get to
91%
them
of
as
the votes
soon as
cast.
we possibly can.
For item 2, ratification of the appointment of PricewaterhouseCoopers, we have received proxies for 94% of shares voting to approve the appointment. For item 3, relating to executive compensation, we have received proxies for 86% of shares voting to approve the resolution, 11% voting against the resolution, and less than 3% abstaining. For item 4, relating to the frequency of votes on executive compensation, we have received proxies for 98% of shares voting to approve holding an annual vote.
No surprise.
For item 5, relating to a report on operations related to China, we have received
Yes.
proxies for 7% of shares voting to approve the proposal,
Oh.
89% voting against the proposal, and less than 4% abstaining. For item 6, relating to charitable contributions disclosure, we have received proxies for 7% of shares voting to approve the proposal, 92% voting against the proposal.
That's been shot down every year.
And less than 1%
Every year.
abstaining. For item 7, relating to a political expenditures report, we have received proxies for 36% of shares voting to approve the
36?
proposal,
I'm sorry.
63% voting against the proposal, and less
Explain
than
in a minute.
1% abstaining.
That's the one that's been
That
shot down
concludes
every
my
year. I'm
report,
sorry.
Mr. Gutierrez.
Thank you.
I was
The
looking at the
polls will
wrong line
now
item.
close.
That's it. It's over.
Based on that report and subject
But
to
that
the
got on
counting
the
of the
record.
ballots
And
presented
that
at the
was awesome.
meeting and
That was
final
frickin'
confirmation of
awesome.
voting results by the Inspector of Election.
Dude, send that guy a
I
super
declare
chat.
that all the nominees for election
Oh,
to the
we're
board
getting
have
that
been
dude on the
duly
show.
elected, that the appointment of PricewaterhouseCoopers has been duly ratified, that the advisory resolution on executive compensation is approved,
So just to
that
explain,
the
folks,
advisory resolution
the reason
to hold
that the
votes
one
on
that was
executive
dramatically different than the
compensation
others
annually
received the
is
30%
approved,
plus vote is
that the
likely
first
because it has
shareholder
institutional
proposal
support
is not
because
approved,
many of those
that
institutional
the
investors
second
lean in that
shareholder
very
proposal
direction.
is
That's
not
what they
approved,
think, and they would love
and
the
that
opportunity to
third
crucify
shareholder
those who disagree.
proposal is not approved. The final vote results will be included in the Form 8K.
Okay, he's going through compliance real quick to what Pro is saying. Let me just clarify it a little bit, if you don't mind me, Pro.
Yeah, go
And
for
that
it.
is the fact that that organization represents a collective of, in a lot of cases, teachers unions and pension funds for teachers. That's where the fight is coming from. Not necessarily the institutionals themselves, but from the pension funds and the unions.
Yep, that's where those union dues go. For those
Educational
of you who think,
Foundation of America. Yeah.
Yeah, for those of you who ignore
they cut this way back.
As briefly as possible, not more than 2 minutes. And
wow.
I don't know how to crank it up.
We're already in Q&A.
Already been answered. His first question comes from Corey Borgstadt from Lubbock, Texas.
I'm amazed.
Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Corey, and I'm a shareholder from Arizona. Disney Plus has become a place where fans can find diverse stories from the characters we have come to know and love. But do you think there ever will be a time where there becomes too much content to the point where it becomes overwhelming for the viewer, and the content doesn't always live up to the Disney quality standards?
There you go.
Well, Corey, first of all,
I love these people today.
I'd be remiss if I didn't say welcome back. I know you have an incredible track record of attending these meetings and asking questions. I think probably getting back to the time you were in early elementary school. So it's certainly nice to hear from you. We are probably one of the world's largest creators of content. But when we decide to make content or tell stories, our aim always is quality. And I must admit, sometimes volume can be tricky in terms of maintaining quality. And I think there is a limit in terms of what can be made or what should be made, something that we're always mindful of. So I'm proud of our track record in terms of what we've made and the quality of it, but I'm also mindful that sometimes the more is not necessarily the merrier.
And our next question today comes from Carmine Perron from The Woodlands, Texas. Please go ahead.
A lot of Texas.
Thanks for taking my question, and thanks, Mr. Iger.
That's a very red area.
Taking on this challenge that you agreed to in November and your work thus far and in the future. My question is, in the second quarter of last year, the company spent $1 billion to essentially buy back licensed content to stream exclusively on our properties.
I love this!
To return, you've emphasized a focus on producing content for the DTC platforms, mainly from the core four, as I like to call them, and potentially licensing undifferentiated content from other owned studios and IP, or possibly producing new content for others out of these creative
I think
outlets.
our viewers are asking questions now directly.
Could you share what content required the $1 billion last year, and whether we can expect any future revenue derived from producing content for others, and if so, when we might hear about this?
These are all the questions that I would ask.
If you somehow swing getting the Marvel theme park rights east of the Mississippi back from Comcast during the Hulu negotiations, that would be great. Thanks.
This is great.
Oh, that's interesting.
Thank you very much, Carmine. I like the second part of your question. We certainly would love to be able to do more with Marvel.
I like the second part about getting the rights back from Universal.
Regarding your first question, the primary shift that occurred in terms of licensing content to third parties came when we determined that the core strategy of the company going forward from a media's perspective would be and should be streaming. And in order to essentially achieve the goal of getting into the streaming business very successfully, we felt we had to take control back of the content that we had licensed to third parties. At that point, most of it was going to Netflix. And we actually enjoyed a good relationship with them over the time that we licensed content for them. But we licensed very valuable content we felt that we absolutely needed in order to launch streaming successfully. And that's exactly what happened. So the shift that you suggest from a financial perspective was so that we could get into the streaming business at a significant level, which we've actually done. And we're proud of our track record so far, although we realize that we have challenges ahead of us. Namely,
like $12 billion in the hole challenges?
I don't think you'll see much of a change there. We're not looking to license our core Disney, Marvel, Pixar, or Star Wars product to third parties. We will consider on occasion licensing other content to third parties, but that will be part of the strategy that we deploy going forward in terms of our streaming business. Thank you. Next question, please.
Yeah. No more pay one or pay two windows. we lost money.
Go ahead.
1,400 in live chat. Thank you so much for being here. Smash that like and that share.
And it looks like we're having some audio difficulties there, so we'll go to our next question, which comes from Dwight Morgan from California. Please go ahead.
Good morning, Bob. Welcome back. I'm a long-term shareholder and a big Disney fan, D23 member, pin trader, pass holder. But 15 years ago in Albuquerque was the first time we met. We had a conversation which continued then in Oakland a year later and culminated in an announcement in San Antonio in 2010, though I wasn't present at that meeting. The Premier Passport was announced and was well received. 10 years later, 2020, it disappeared without announcement at all. So I tried to renew mine. I had no clue it was no longer available. My attendance at the virtual meeting that year was terminated when my call was dropped for some reason as the meeting began. When I called back, I received a recording stating that my ID was already in use, so I missed the opportunity to ask the other Bob why that pass was gone.
The other Bob.
I called in 2021 and asked Bob why the Premier Pass had been eliminated. His response was,
oh no, this is like pixie dust
gripes. Went on
gripes.
to the next call without explanation. I listened to the first quarter shareholder meeting call in February, and you spoke of reducing annual pass access. And that made some sense.
But these are the plain language questions that often throw these guys off.
That could be made to work with the Premier Pass. So my question is threefold. Do I have to start all over? Or can you help tell me when I can renew my Premier Pass? And why should those of us who are true fanatics be punished and restricted when the Premier Pass worked so well?
I love it.
Thanks for your time, and again, welcome back.
Why did you cancel F-Troop?
Dwight, first of all, thank you very much for attending one of our shareholder meetings again. I know that we've had a lot of interaction over the years, and I appreciate both your interest in Disney and, of course, your patronage. I looked into this when I came back, actually, I think anticipating that I would get a question from you on the subject, so I guess I was correct in that regard.
Right.
And what I discovered was that you are one of very few or people who are actually interested in such a pass. And because demand for that kind of pass is so limited,
so he's obviously
it didn't make sense for the companies to support it. There's cost associated with supporting it.
Oh, is the Premier the
two-part
just
didn't have enough interest
California
to justify
and Orlando
it.
pass?
It's just that simple. We appreciate the fact that you're interested in visiting all of our parks. We actually believe that they're all accessible in varying ways, and the Premier Pass didn't really achieve all that much in terms of accessibility. But again, I just want to say that you're one of a few that are interested in it, and that wasn't enough to justify us keeping it going. Thank you, though. I appreciate it. Next question, please.
Yes, sir. And our next question today comes from Alan Fisher from Ameriprise Financial.
Institutionals, here we go.
Hi, Bob,
Ameriprise.
and again, I reiterate, welcome back. As a financial advisor
That's
here
American
in Melbourne,
Express.
only about an hour from Walt Disney World, what steps have already been taken or will be taken to protect shareholder value with regard to the legal battle between Disney and Ron DeSantis and the Reedy Creek Improvement District? We're kind of all concerned about that here. The tax bill. My son lives in Orlando, and he's worried about his taxes going up.
Alan, let me, if you don't mind, let me address this issue, which I haven't really done much.
Oh,
publicly,
please
but
do,
I'd love the
Bob.
opportunity just
Please create content
put it
for me,
all in
Bob.
perspective. First of all, I know you said you're a resident, I think, of Melbourne, Florida. We love the state of Florida, and I think that's reflected in not only how much we've invested over the last 50 years, but how much we've given back in the form of jobs and community service, taxes, which you brought up, tourism, of course, and all sorts of other responsible business practices. We've also always respected and appreciated what the state has done for us. It's kind of been a two-way street. But a year ago, the company took a position on pending Florida legislation. And while the company may have not handled the position that it took very well, a company has a right to freedom of speech just like individuals do.
Oh my gosh,
And
he's making a
obviously, in
mistake.
taking the
He's not
position,
going to do this,
the
is he?
governor got very angry about the position Disney took.
He's
And
making a
seems like he's
mistake.
decided to retaliate against us, including
Oh
the
my
naming of
gosh.
a new board to oversee the property and the business. In effect, to seek to punish a company for its
He
exercise
is
of a
not
constitutional right.
conflating.
He's conflating
RCID and Disney right now, is he?
Against any company or individual, but particularly against the company that means so much to the state that you live in. And to put that in perspective, we have over 75,000 employees, which I noted in my opening. Countless thousands of indirect jobs have been created.
Ron DeSantis just poured a drink.
Visitors will go through our gates this year
This will be used in court. 8 million of them
from outside
this
the
is
U.S.
absolutely going to go to court.
We are the largest taxpayer in the state.
He must have known the subpoena was going to make this
clear. You may find this interesting as it relates to future taxes, but we're currently planning now to invest over $17 billion in Walt Disney World over the next 10 years. And those investments, we estimate, will create 13,000 new Disney jobs and thousands of other indirect jobs. And they'll also attract more people to the state and generate more taxes. And so our point on this is that any action that thwarts those efforts, simply to retaliate for a position the company took, sounds not just anti-business, but it sounds anti-Florida. And I'll just leave it at that. Thank you very much for your interest.
Mags Legal was going to be here, but it's 3 a.m. where he's at in Korea. He's not up yet.
It's a major tactical error. It's huge.
Good morning, Bob, and thank
later.
you for coming back after a successful retirement. It's a painful task, I'm sure, and I know that you do it for love of the company, not for money.
Yeah.
Regarding the last question brought up, I disagreed that Disney has an obligation to take political positions that are detrimental to the overall
Chat,
company.
we're going to explain in a minute.
But anyway,
just stick around. We're going to get back to that. Hold tight.
Huge mistake.
Your comments earlier about concentrating on the streaming service going forward as a primary business front. And I just did some quick calculations that if there are 100 million households in America and we get 100% of them at $7 a month times 12 months, that's $8 billion a year, less than 10% of the revenue of the Walt Disney Corporation. In other words, it's a capped amount. It's like the number of heads of hair a barber can cut is finite. There's not more hours.
His math's a little
I'm
squiffy.
questioning the comments you also made about.
But I see what he's trying to say. I just don't agree with it.
Netflix, which
trying to argue about saturation.
Produced volumes.
If he reaches saturation, he raises prices.
Content.
Or
and
offers more
I can only say that my own watch list has 400 or 4,000 things I'm going to watch later, but I never seem to get to it. Having gone through the video store business in the 1980s and seeing how the video store business was destroyed not by Netflix, but rather by oversupply of
Red Shirt,
to the consumers,
we're going to
overwhelming their
stick around.
To make choices.
I didn't think I was going to be stuck here this long today, but I'm going to be.
That because it's not playing the infinite game; it's playing a finite game. There's
1,500 watching. Thank you.
$7
like, share, sub.
Iger self-immolation.
So anyway, my comment is it wise for the company to take political positions that to satisfy a very small portion of the people when our primary mission is entertainment?
He circled back and threw him off.
Okay, well, Raymond, first of all, I respect your position on this and appreciate your question. And I would like to address that. Look, first of all, as the CEO of the company, I think my job is to strive to do what I think is best for our business, and that includes doing what's best for our cast members or our employees, and what will enable both to flourish. I don't think
your
we
duty
should
is
or
to
can
the
weigh in
customer
on
and the
every
shareholders,
issue.
not the employees.
And I also understand there are going to be gray areas. There are going to be times when we decide to weigh in on an issue that we believe is worthy of debate because of its relevance and importance to our business or to our employees. And there are times when I actually believe we shouldn't. But I strongly feel that we alone have to determine whether, when, or how to weigh in on an issue, whether it's private or public. Of course, with the standard that when we take a position on those matters, there's a true reason why we have. And in almost all cases, it has to be because it directly affects our business or our people.
This is why Vanguard left the DEI climate change
expressed
stuff.
themselves on numerous issues of both right and wrong. And our country, I think, is better off for that. And this was evident during the civil rights era, as I recall as a child, when a lot of companies weighed in on injustices that they saw in America.
About bedroom issues
it was
with
certainly
the civil rights
true during World War II.
He just did.
Stood in silence.
He's comparing teaching 4-year-olds bedroom issues with World War II.
Carry the stain of indifference. So as long as I'm in the job, I'm going to continue to be guided by a sense of
the stain of indifference
and
for 4-year-olds getting education on drag queens.
Weigh in because the issue.
He's gone off the rails. He's off the rails.
People that work for us.
He has.
Thank you.
Holy crap on a stick!
He's lost his mind.
Today comes from Chris O'Horo from Florida. Please go ahead.
From Florida.
This is
Hi, Bob. I don't know if
but
you
Disney's
remember me
getting rid of woke, y'all.
A couple of meetings
or whatever.
I been with the company for 34 years. I opened Disney MGM Studios and Indiana Jones show. I was at Indiana Jones show for 30 years. Now I'm at Galaxy's Edge. It's pretty cool. I'm at Gesture Rec Tech. I make our characters help them out talking. And I just wanted to also thank you for the support you're showing our cast members. I really appreciate the stuff you just said, and I just want to tell you how much I appreciate that. The reason why I really have
they're screening calls right now to get him something easy.
I was at my cast center, and you guys had a tent set up, and you had information, and they were talking about CastLink helping cast members, and they were talking about a program called
What do you want to bet the last guy
care service
said to the screeners that he wanted to talk about Disney Plus?
Later that year, my mother got cancer. She was a 17-year cast member too in Central Reservation Center, and she retired from the company after 17 years doing guest service for Central Reservations, and her condition got worse and worse and worse, and somehow I remembered about the backup.
Not financial advice to anybody, but
care
the stock
service
is
you
dropping
guys
right now.
offered through the live cast. So I called them and found out about it.
Let's
and
be careful with that right
for
now.
My family that
mid-trading day
that was able to come help my mom, and she was very proud too because it was from Disney and stuff. But I just want to thank the company for the care you do show towards cast members. I know that the company gets attacked a lot, but as a cast member, I'm very grateful. 34 years I've been with the company. And I thank you very much. My question is, has the market ever thought about going back to the e-ticket system? I think that would be something that needs to be looked into. Thank you.
E-tickets. The first part of your question or comment is really appreciated. I remember having an interesting discussion some years back about benefits that we offer and support that we offer our cast members. And for years, we had been very focused on offering support for the children of cast members, daycare centers, et cetera. And someone in our HR department raised the fact that we also have an obligation to our parents often, our aging parents in particular. And at the time, I had lost my dad and my mother had Alzheimer's. And I just remember it really hit home, that issue hit home. And we decided to extend our support.
What's up, Flash? Good to see you, buddy.
To our cast members for elder care as well as child care. And so I appreciate the fact that you've taken advantage of that. And
Flash, if you just got here, you missed
it's critically important.
Heavy stuff,
I've
dude.
not had any discussion about reinstituting e-tickets. To answer your question, I can have that discussion with Josh tomorrow and the team. We're looking at a number of different opportunities for us to improve guest experience, to not only make sure that they have access to what they want to have access to when they come in.
He's not saying anything here,
but basically to make sure that as many as possible also have that access. So anyway, I haven't.
I don't know what that question meant anyway, and I know Disney Parks pretty darn well.
We're considering seriously, but given the fact that you asked the question, I will bring it up. Thank you very much.
It seems to me he was asking, is Disney going to start building new e-ticket attractions again? Maybe I missed something. Chat, let me know what I missed.
Please go ahead.
You can't be talking about bringing back the ticket system.
Hello, Bob. I'd like to address what I view as the elephant in the room. Over the last few years, Disney has turned from a place of magic for children to an ideological company. Serving LGBTQ, IA+, however many other letters you want to add to that, lobbies to groom children. Over and over again, you see how your films and entertainment are increasingly promoting the woke agenda. How can you explain to parents worldwide that you recently celebrated 100 years of history by collaborating with the San Francisco Gay Men's Chorus to produce an LGBTQ IA+ themed Disney musical? This is a group who have explicitly stated that they want to indoctrinate children. They literally sang a concert and they sang the words, "We will convert your children quietly and subtly, and you will barely notice it." Disney chose to collaborate with these predators to sing to children. How can you explain to parents worldwide that over the next few months, dozens of highly sexualized gay pride parades will take place in Disneyland parks worldwide, the exact places where they used to take their children for fun? Are you surprised that
Mike
Disney's
is dying with me, baby,
losing 2.4 million subscribers in the last quarter?
These are the days where I wish I could be on camera.
No wonder you were laying off 7,000 employees from today, in addition to the other thousands last year. No wonder Disney's stock value dropped more than 30% over 1 year. As a Disney shareholder, I have a simple question. Would it not be beneficial for the company to ditch the LGBTQIA+ and gender ideology?
To these kinds of things for 15 years.
If you are really interested in refloating Disney, please turn Disney back to the apolitical, fun place that it used to be. And I bet that you'll win back both the trust of families and the stock market.
Never have I heard things
Elizabeth,
like
I'm coming to join you, honey.
Thank you very much for your
Answer the question,
I
Bob.
know you were talking about more than just content. You were talking about experiences that we provide to people.
They tried to screen him, guaranteed.
On being accessible to all people.
I want to hear this.
But let me put some perspective, if you don't mind, create some perspective here too. You know that our company is celebrating its 100th year this year. And we've been telling stories for 100 years that are aimed at entertaining and inspiring families from all over the world. And we're extremely proud of the positive impact we've had on billions of people over that 100-year period of time. And for generations, the stories that we've told have touched people's hearts because they've been infused with right values. They've celebrated heroes and emphasized the value of family and friendship. They've instilled a steady faith in the belief that good triumphs over evil.
Not what we're talking
about. Tomorrow is always brighter than today.
Until 2015.
Who wrote the platitude speech? Amazingly positive impact on the world that always loves and needs great stories, and heavens, great entertainment, particularly in today's world. And we've recently gotten criticism, as you just expressed, for what some perceive to be agenda-driven content. And I'm sensitive to that, actually. Our primary mission needs to be to entertain, and then through our entertainment to continue to have a positive impact on the world. And I'm very serious about that. It should not be agenda-driven. It should be entertainment-driven. That should be the goal in all of our stories. And while I know we're just never going to please everyone all the time, we should be sensitive to the fact that parents have different levels of comfort with the content that is delivered to their children. He just straight
lied.
I want parents to be able to trust the content that we're creating for their children, and we're committed to delivering age-appropriate content for family audiences.
If anyone doesn't know what's going on here, watch my channel.
The world around us, and that foster a greater understanding, greater perspective, greater acceptance of all people. And it's just my hope that Disney continues to be a source of hope and optimism for the world.
Greater acceptance of what?
We're honored
pedos?
To actually carry forth Walt's legacy of inspiring joy and wonder for everyone. Thank you very much.
And that was a politician's answer.
Thank you. And our next question today
what
comes
a
from Bruno
bucket
Ricci,
of bullshit that
Detroit.
was.
Please go ahead.
Do it again.
Everything they've done. It's in the stockholder report. It was in Reimagine Tomorrow. It's entirely agenda-driven. It's in the corporate situs of Disney at this point.
So I would like
he
to
straight
say
lied.
that, good morning from the comeback city of Detroit, Michigan. We would like to commend Disney for their commitment to diversity and inclusion.
This is what happens when you become
here we go.
political.
Wait, here we go. Here's the balance
on
call.
the board of directors and in your upper management. It was great to hear Mr. Gutierrez address everyone this morning, and we believe that this reflects the diversity of the world that Disney serves. This should be a benchmark for other corporations to follow. We would also like to thank Disney for their continued support of other nonprofits that serve the underserved communities throughout the world, especially in the U.S., and we truly, truly appreciate the efforts that Disney provides to make a brighter world for everyone. Thank you very much. Muchas gracias. And then we're looking forward to a brighter 2020.
Here's the thing. Lisa Su is one of the most brilliant CEOs of a Fortune 500 company. She runs AMD. The fact that she's Asian has nothing to do with anything.
Obviously, diversity has been a real priority for us, not just as a company in terms of our employees, but also obviously reflected in the content that we make and reflected in the Walt Disney Board of Directors. It was a true priority of our board some years back to make sure that just as our content best reflects the world that we're trying to reach, that our board also reflects the world that we do business in, and we love the fact that you recognize that and appreciate it. And I think it is a great way to end this meeting. I'd like to express my appreciation for all the questions that were asked and those that were in attendance. Obviously, my appreciation to all the great people that work for this company and make it what it is, and my appreciation to the Walt Disney Board of Directors. As I said in my opening comments, it is a true honor and a privilege to be back running this wonderful company. And I thank you all very much.
That was a bruising beatdown.
God.
Thank you for attending today's presentation. You may now disconnect.
I've never seen anything like it.
We have a lot to unpack here, folks. Don't go anywhere. Holy hell.
I think Special Victims Unit is going to have to go up there to Bob Iger's office.
That was a prison shower scene during that Q&A.
I have watched this kind of stuff for 15 years. I have
never seen anything like that.
Anything like it at all.
I've been doing audits for 16 years, and that is unlike anything I've ever seen. Even I've been in ones where there's been like literally a massive blowout between management and shareholders and like hostile takeover shit. That was more civil.
Can I just thank you, Tripping Orc? Yes, it did. I'm sorry, we're gonna go a little. We have over. I'm not kidding. We have over 50 things marked in the private chat window for super chats and member chats. We're gonna get to every one of these things.
Here's a quick comment, and then I'll be quiet for a while. But
no, take it.
The juxtaposition from the start of this, where it was a grand slam. I even tweeted this out. Grand slam.
I said
perfect. And then what happened was, as soon as it got to the proposals and to the questions, people began to ask about the things that are beyond the veneer of Disney, and Disney could no longer facilitate the course correction that I think their people really want to make. But rather, now the questions became pointed at Iger and literally his political opinions of the world, which have been manifested in Disney, and therefore Disney, this political entity now, became an all-out brawl between the right and the left. But the ones who were coming from the right, the left was just basically saying, you know, huzzah for you, hooray, hooray, we appreciate all you're doing. The right was bringing massive, unpleasant truth bombs into the record for the world to hear about, with talking about the Uyghurs in China and organ donations and, what happens with choirs, indoctrinating small children. It was absolutely a beat-down destruction fest with Robert Iger sitting there blindsided and knocked out by it. And I honestly believe, I truly believe this, folks, based on the way he was reacting, I think they were attempting to screen those, and I think that they were framing it as if, oh, by the way, I'm going to talk about Disney Plus, and then 90% is the last 10% is, don't you think we should get away from ideological content? Or, I think that's how those people were getting through the screening. I think that the critics have become so savvy that Disney can't even screen them out anymore.
No, I agree with you completely, because normally what happens in the process is exactly as you specified, Pro, whereby there will be screeners and they will ask a question and they'll say, hey, I'm a shareholder, and they get on the list. And what they're doing is they're deliberately getting through the system without without them being able to bleep, because this is this is an investor shareholder meeting. And this tells you something else that I believe goes even deeper, which is that even people, it's similar to someone, say, like me, where you might hold some of their stock, but you are absolutely outraged. I'm outraged about the insidiousness of this company and the fact that I can't really allow my own kid to see stuff freely on Disney like I once did.
Exactly. And I'll tell you this too. So we spent a lot of time talking about how Iger had made the mistake. You heard us audibly gasp and say, he's making a mistake. What we were talking about there is when he came out, and he had to be unpracticed at this. This had to have been off the cuff because it's too stupid otherwise. Yeah. When he said that the state of Florida was targeting Disney, the entire argument, the entire legal argument is that the Reedy Creek Improvement District, it has to be separate from Disney.
Yes.
That provides all the protection to the company. If it's not separate from Disney, then Disney is open to massive litigation. Yes. And by him saying that, by him equating
fraud.
Yes, by him equating the two pseudo cities and the special district with Disney itself. It may not, for the average person, they may not understand what's going on, but it is a huge court error. It is massive, and it will be used against Disney very soon.
It's very likely that will come up in a Supreme Court case. If this Reedy Creek thing doesn't get resolved soon, they could be talking about it in Washington, D.C.
And I'd like to reenact for Valiant Renegade's benefit. I'm going to reenact the scene that just happened in Florida where Governor DeSantis just did something like this.
Do you have any confetti back there? Also, we need some confetti and a little bit of dancing.
I'm sorry, what, Bob?
Oh, my God.
Bob, what, Bob? Keep going, Bob.
Yeah, keep talking, Bob. I'm beside myself. And what Pro said earlier, I stepped away for a second. I agree. I think that now look, all these shareholder proposals, and I want to make this very clear. Let's back up a little bit, because this is what we need to do here on Valiant Renegade, because this is the point of this channel. This is the objective. Understand that all of those shareholder proposals that you heard rattled off during the earnings call by Mr. Gutierrez, Disney's chief lawyer, okay? Those are pre-filed well in advance. Voting ballots are sent out to stockholders and proxy holders way in advance. You saw when Nelson Peltz's proxy ballots were like 2 months ago now. All of that is baked in. What is not necessarily baked in is what you heard when the proponents of those motions, those measures for the board to put before the stockholders, those 2 minutes that Mr. Gutierrez gave each of those proposals spokespeople, if you were, to get on the phone and say, that is not set up in advance. They don't know what's going to happen during that. So obviously the language, they don't have to go on there and necessarily, to my knowledge, explicitly read the proposal, although some of that language is in the proposal, but it's a little bit more off the cuff. And then, of course, when you get to the Q&A, to what Pro said, I think is very correct, that I think a lot of these individual stockholders that have gotten in the queue certainly have gotten more savvy, where they will say, I have a question about Disney Plus and subscribers. I have a question about this or that. And then they get on the air and then pow, unleash. And let me throw this into the mix, Pro. And I want your reactions. And we've got to get to some of these super chats here. 1,700 people watching right now in live chat. We have so much to discuss. Stay tuned. We're getting all these because these super chats are gonna ask a lot of very poignant questions.
Well, I have a recommendation. I'm sorry, Pro, not to interrupt you, but when we get to super chats, I got a recommendation as how we can blow through and get people caught up.
Okay, we'll get there. Let me say this. I firmly believe right now, without question, and I mean, I'm going to go out on the limb and say I'm 100% certain at this point that some of these callers that came in with that level of questioning, because there were some Florida people in there, I promise you right now, DeSantis' office was involved in some of those.
I was wondering if you were involved in it.
I promise you right now.
Sounds like our viewers.
I'm 99.9% certain. How about I'll back off 1/10%?
I made the comment that I wanted to. I made the comment that I wanted to make a question. I don't think I would have been as brutal as those were.
That was ugly, dude. Oh my good Lord. Make sure you're subscribed to Valiant Renegade and join us every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern for the live show.